Okay, it's finally time, y'all. I told you it was coming. I know it's been like years probably in the making, but I'm finally getting around to Minato versus Tobirama or Tobirama versus Minato, whatever you like. And today I have with me my good buddy Sage of the Thick Halves. Say hey to everybody.
Yo, what's up, guys? Glad to be on the channel. Glad that we're still alive and kicking over here. It's good to have one of my good buddies, one of the best creators in this space, putting out some good content. So really excited to dig into this and hopefully enlighten some people along the way.
Yeah, on that note, I will give a video about the change in my direction of my channel. I just wanted to say that for another video, but yes, it's the lightning blade and not lightning snow anymore, but I will get into that later. But yeah, today we're going to cover a fan-wide argument, like for years now. I mean, honestly, full disclosure, I was not even wanting to do this video because it's been made and covered so many times by so many other YouTube creators. So, but you know, people have been asking me, people have been wanting this from me for a while, so what better way to kind of get back into it than to just go ahead get it done. Real quick, we're going to talk about what versions we're going to be using. We're going to be using both Alive, Alive Minato, Alive Tobirama, and Edo Minato and Edo Tobirama. So, we got both versions for y'all just to make y'all happy in case y'all wanted to see both versions. But anyway, so we're going to go over the, the movesets of both characters and then just to tell y'all what we think and how this fight goes. So, Sage, you got anything before we start?
No, I'm excited to break this down. I feel like a lot of people have a lot of misconceptions about things, or maybe have heard bad arguments. So I'm looking forward to clearing some of those things up and introducing some new information as well.
All right, so first thing is first is we, as in me and Sage, do not think this is a clean sweep. Like, these two are Hokages. Let's go ahead and get that out of the way. Like, these guys are no joke. I don't think this is going to be an easy fight one way or the other. I think these two have their work cut out for them, but don't get too upset about each. Again, this is a fight that is like infamous to cover. So I know one way or the other, we're going to get some flack, whoever we choose and whoever we think is, the victor. So real quick, we'll cover what everyone typically goes to when discussing this fight, which is speed. There are numerous arguments throughout history about who is necessarily the faster. I hate to like play devil's advocate, but when it is blatantly admitted by somebody that they are better at a particular moveset than the other person, I think it's clear cut. But even if that's not much to convince you, because like here's the thing, I talked to Sage about this a couple days ago. I've often misinterpreted the line that Tobirama gives to Minato when they got to the battlefield at the Fourth War, where he says you're better or you're faster, at flying Raijin than I am. I've never 100% understood this statement that's being presented because it's been presented a couple of different ways, whether it's the anime or it's the manga or some other translation of the manga. I've seen, so in the anime, either in the dubbed and subbed, it says you are better at teleporting than I am. Some translations have even said you're faster at teleporting than I am. Teleporting is teleporting. I don't mean it's not exactly the same thing as moving, like, or running, so to speak. It's like, it's just teleporting. It should be instant one way or the other. So the way I've always interpreted Tobirama's line there is that he's better at using flying Raijin. It's just in general, like he's more efficient with using it, which, I mean, it's pretty evident, Minato has such finesse with flying Raijin that Tobirama just does not have. Now, like Tobirama, that's not to say that Tobirama isn't good at flying Raijin. He obviously is proficient enough with it to, place it on kunais and throw it, like to how he did with Izuna. He threw Izuna off guard by throwing kunais that had a flying Raijin mark on it. But I just don't think that Tobirama is proficient with it enough as Minato is, because we've seen Minato use dozens of kunais all at the same time with flying Raijin marks on them. And yeah, so I mean, Sage, what you got?
Yeah, so to corroborate that, the data books do just kind of heavily imply that Minato took the flying Raijin and made it better. We see evidence of this with, flying Raijin level 2. We see flying Raijin Gaiden Thunder. So there is a lot of evidence to support that he is better at FTG. But what I will say is this particular statement is such a hot topic of debate because what Tobirama says there in the Japanese is Shunshin, which is body flicker, whereas Haraishin is flying Raijin. And so people get this kind of twisted because the way Viz translates it is teleportation jutsu. So that may just appear as if it's the nail in the coffin, right? Wrong. We actually get Tobirama, the guy who created FTG, misnaming it multiple times, calling it Shunshin, body flicker, numerous times as well. So basically the argument from Tobirama guys basically say, well, that can't be body flicker because, or it can't be proven to be body flicker because we know that he misterms them a lot. He calls FTG, Shunshin, he calls body flicker Haraishin, like he mixes them up quite a bit. But the problem is we actually do have an objectively canon source that has cleared this this up. So the Naruto website, they put out birthday columns for different characters, and in the Minato one, it talks about how he arrived to the battlefield using his skill with teleportation jutsu. So you may just say, oh, well, maybe they're pointing to FTG, it's teleportation. But then you look at the Shisui birthday article, and they call specifically Shisui the teleporter, talk about his skill with teleportation jutsu, which we know as fans is body flicker, the Shunshin. Then you go, okay, so maybe they're just like mixing up terminology. Well, every time it talks about FTG, it's very explicit in not only saying flying Raijin, but also providing context for it and saying transportation. So there is a delineation drawn on the official Naruto website birthday columns where they call body flicker teleportation jutsu because that's how it's described in the viz, and then they call the flying Raijin or transportation. So what this leads me to believe is that the evidence would suggest that he did beat all of the other Hokage there using physical speed, and that's what Tobirama is referencing. But what I will say as well is if you want to argue for the other side and say that it's in reference to FTG, he could just be referencing the fact that Minato did just teleport away a Ten Tails Biju Bomb. So it can go either way. I lean in the direction of it being body flicker because of the Naruto official website birthday column leaning in that direction as well, but I do think it's a bit ambiguous.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where you have to it's up to your interpretation of much. So again, like I said, for me, I'm just speaking for any of the fans out there who have also had this happen where they see different translations from either the manga, the anime, dubbed or sub, whatever, different translations. Like it is up to your interpretation of what Tobirama was specifically. I said, I totally agree with Sage when he said it's possible that Tobirama was talking about how he teleported the Ten Tails Biju Bomb. But we don't know what Tobirama actually saw by the time he got to the battlefield or not. So it's it is very up in the air. But case in point though, it just seems like in terms of speed and also flying Raijin, it seems that Minato is the superior. So speed wise, again, we kind of just covered that. Minato is, I don't think he necessarily towers, so to speak, over Tobirama, because again, teleporting is teleporting. I just think that, in my personal opinion, the way how we've seen Minato use flying Raijin with such finesse, his efficiency with it, the fact that he can use dozens of kunais, and that he's really professional with using clones in conjunction with flying Raijin as well. Not to say that Tobirama isn't, but it just seems, again, all things considered, it just seems that when it comes to speed and flying Raijin, Minato is the superior.
So quickly, a lot of people will say, even if he's faster with FTG, he doesn't have the physical speed to keep up with Tobirama because they point to the Jubito instance where he tags him under his right armpit with his left hand as he's going running through him. Pause. But the problem with that is we have no idea when he started moving his hand. He could have started moving his hand as soon as Jubito began his movement. Jubito is several feet from him, and then Jubito could have raised his hands at the last moment to blast through him. So all we know is that in the time it took Jubito to cover 20-30 feet, that Tobirama was able to move his hand maybe half a foot. So there is no physical relativity there. People will point to the paper bombs and say, oh, he placed all these paper bombs on him individually. But again, we know that that's probably not true because we know that the way he uses Edo Tensei bodies is he rigs them with paper bombs. We find this out both in the manga and in the Tobirama Naruto website birthday column. So him rigging paper bombs on Edo Tensei and then specifically saying, this is the first time I've been in Edo Tensei, this is going to be advantageous. He had a lot of time between the time he got reanimated and when he arrives at the battlefield. It just tracks that maybe he had already rigged himself with paper bombs, which is then backed up by the fact that he literally reaches inside of his chest and pulls out the tandem paper bomb. So him having paper bombs rigged is just in character, so that makes sense. So I don't think that using that as a physical relativity feat is honest at all. And meanwhile, we can get into this, as much as Lightning wants to, but we have Minato reacting to 8th Gate Guy in the 5th Step Sekizo. Yeah, I know he has both translations. A lot of people talk about how because he's in the air, the 5th step isn't actually as fast as it otherwise would be. The 5th step is described in the data books as being the fastest step, the fastest gear, and so it should be the fastest, but they say because he's in the air, that's not true. Well, the technique is stated to be a technique that happens in the air, so that doesn't really change anything. And then some people will say because he changes direction, he loses his momentum and therefore is slower, but I would just say you'd have to prove that that's not how he usually uses the technique, because if that's how he usually uses the technique, then it wouldn't change the speed of the technique, you know what I mean? Yeah. So that is a legitimate reaction feat. And then the final sort of nail in the coffin for me in terms of the speed argument to at least get Tobirama and Minato to similar levels is Minato just outright blitzes Kurama twice in their encounter. He blitzes him once whenever he saves Kushina, you could argue Mental Lamp, and then the second time he blitzes over, he's on the Hokage monument, Kurama's charging up a Biju Bomb in the middle of the village, and he runs over, he doesn't have a FTG tag on Kurama at all, he hadn't touched him. He runs over halfway across the village, jumps above Kurama, Kurama and summons Gamabunta before Kurama can even react. So he is physically a blitz tier above Kurama. Kurama able to react to Hashirama's Wood Golem. The Wood Golem is relative to Madara Susanoo. We know that Susanoo is faster than the user, so it's faster than Madara. Madara is relative to KCM2 Naruto. So this definitively puts Minato's like combat speed above the likes of KCM2 Naruto, which then puts him and Tobirama both vaguely above that level. So I just want to cover that really quick. That way people understand, like, whenever we're looking into this, it's not just that Minato has better FTG usage, it's also that he is at least in that same tier in terms of combat and reaction speed as well.
Yeah, and real quick, you know, just to sell to the point that we're not trying to, like, you know, be too hard on Tobirama when it comes to the speed aspect, because, like, here's the thing, and when it comes to the most impressive feats, in my opinion, for both characters, because a lot of people have like, you know, put the idea out there that, like, the most impressive speed feat for Tobirama, especially when it comes to flying Raijin itself, is the fact that he was able to, with Naruto's help, blitz Jubito when Jubito was looking right at them. Like, he was having a full conversation with everybody, all that group, and Tobirama immediately just took Naruto and blitzed him from behind, which is impressive, don't get me wrong. But on the flip side of that, I think the most impressive feat for Minato when it comes to speed is, again, what Sage was talking about, how he got in front of the true secret orbs from Madara, got them to, you know, waited for the orbs to touch him first, and then teleport out of Guy's direction, but before he got hit. So, and this was Guy not really even expecting anything to happen like that. So he had no prior knowledge of how their plan was going to happen.
People will say, like, oh, well, they had a plan. It's like, dude, Minato, Gaara, and Kakashi made a plan while Guy is juggling Jubidara, and all he knows is that Minato said, keep forging ahead no matter what. So since we already debunked he's in the air so he's slower, and he changed direction so he's slower claims, the fact that second or third step, I can't remember which one, second or third step 8th gate Guy in the Sekizo was able to blitz around Madara before Madara could, like, fully physically react. The 5th step being the fastest of those steps just puts him physically above Jubidara. So, like, if anybody's arguing Jubito relative to Jubidara in terms of speed, you have a problem. I'm just saying, like, if you take the higher end assertions, Minato should be a good deal above Tobirama in just reaction speed, but in terms of their physical movement speed, it should be relatively close. It's just like, I just want to warn you guys, there are a lot of really disingenuous arguments out there, so I feel the need to sort of cover them as much as we can.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, as evident, we spent like, what, 13 minutes just on speed alone. Yeah. So I mean, again, like Sage was saying, that speed, when it comes to this fight, you know, like I said earlier in the beginning of the video, this is what people think of when they first talk about this fight. That's like the first thing that people will come to when talking about Minato versus Tobirama, is who's the faster, or who's more proficient with body flicker or flying Raijin. It's a very wishy-washy kind of argument to make, but I think we presented enough evidence to at least say that at bare minimum, Minato is the superior when it comes to both speed and body flicker, or speed and flying Raijin. So moving on to physical strength. Now this is where I do think that Tobirama does exceed Minato at, because, like, Minato is not really known for having like overwhelming strength, or at least overwhelming physical strength. Now he's pretty durable. I mean, if you want to take the Minato one shot into account, which it is canon, Minato took a pretty good hit from Kushina / Kurama. I mean, he had a hole in his whole torso and was not only still alive, but still had enough energy, chakra, whatever, or life force to combat the Nine Tails inside of Kushina's psyche. So Minato can take a pretty good hit. Well, as far as physical strength goes, though, I mean, I'm not trying to say his physical strength is basic, but it's nothing compared to someone like Tsunade, you know, or the Raikage. So they, you know, the Rasengan tank's a pretty good hit, obviously. Now, if we're counting Sage Mode, then that's a completely different section. Obviously, he has about as much strength as Naruto did in the Pain arc, if not more. But obviously, Minato says he's not proficient with it. But I don't know. Again, it's like with the Tobirama statement from earlier. Minato saying that could be interpreted a couple different ways. I personally have always interpreted the fact that he says that he can't maintain it very long. He's still a perfect sage. Like, it's clearly evident that he's able to enter perfect sage mode. It's just he's not as proficient with it as Naruto is, where Naruto can maintain it for a lot longer. Minato seems like he can. So again, that's up to y'all to decide. But if we put sage mode on the table, then I think that bare minimum, you know, while he's in sage mode, Minato kind of scales above Tobirama. But I don't think by much, because, you know, this feat that I'm about to bring up, it might seem small, but Minato's reaction could probably say all that he needs to. Because whenever they're in the Uchiha hideout, Tobirama just kind of charges up his chakra chakra. And like, granted, it shocks everybody to a decent extent. And yeah, like Hashirama's following chakra charge up, or whatever you want to call it, is the one that scares everybody, and they're like craps their pants. But like, still, Minato's like, wow, that's impressive or whatever. Like, yeah, he's probably attributing it more to Hashirama, but I don't want to like say that it probably isn't also Tobirama's chakra charging that, you know, make Minato say something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, so yeah, I don't know. And then he also like puts just a little chakra into the wall and creates a whole dent in the hideout. So I mean, Tobirama's strength is nothing to sleep on. It's just, you know, Sage Mode aside, I think Tobirama does scale above Minato.
Yeah, I would say like, because the Senju in general are just kind of implied to have crazy physiology. Senju, you know, like their name implies like they're well-rounded in all areas. So I think giving him physical strength, and then like even like just chakra in general, like overall physiology outside of speed, durability should go his direction as well. I think he doesn't have any like real durability feats. I mean, that's just because of a lack of actually seeing him fight people while alive. But I do think it is worth noting that Minato, he can amp his physical durability, speed, strength, all of that stuff by going into Sage Mode. But even he tells Kakashi, like, depending on the translation, either I've never used this in battle or I have rarely used this in battle. So it's like, it's not really in character for him to go into Sage Mode. But if he does, you know, his durability goes from like being pretty impressive to being able to tank a kick to the chest from Jubidara with no damage. Yeah. So it's like, if he does go into Sage Mode, unironically, I don't know if there's anything in Tobirama's arsenal that can harm him, but it's just like, it's just not in character for him to do so. So I do think in terms of just pure physicals, I would also give Tobirama the strength advantage, probably a slight durability advantage, with Minato having at least a slight speed advantage. With, you know, but Tobirama's no slouch in that area. He was the fastest man alive during his time, you know, like, we're not dunking on him, but I would say that's probably how it breaks down.
So now when it comes to jutsu variety, who do you think that has just the superior? Because it's like, I mean, no shade on Minato, but let's be honest, Minato is definitely just flying Raijin and Rasengan, with a couple of sealing ninjutsus here and there, but for the most part, that's all we see from Minato is, you know, the Rasengan and flying Raijin. So I mean, personally, I just feel like, and now granted, we don't see too much more jutsu from Tobirama, but just from what we have seen, it does seem like Tobirama has the edge in terms of jutsu variety.
Yeah, I think in terms of overall variety, for sure. I mean, he is known for like just developing a ton of jutsu. We don't actually see him perform more jutsu on screen than Minato does, but we know he invented the Shadow Clone Jutsu, the multi-Shadow Clone Jutsu, the reanimation jutsu, tandem paper bombs, like FTG, like he invented
all his water style ninjutsu.
Yeah, exactly. And like his water style jutsu is no joke, you know, like Madara felt the need to block his water jutsu with his Susanoo ribcage. Like he didn't even want to try to dodge it or block it physically. Yeah. So it's like that. I mean, also
speaks volumes. Also, freaking his water slicing jutsu was able to cut through all the freaking Ten Tails trees like they were butter, bro. So that jutsu is no joke.
Yeah, severing wave. Yeah, so he's got a lot of really good stuff. I will say, in terms of how useful their arsenals are going to be in this battle, I think it's probably pretty similar, but I do think the Rasengan just kind of like edges out anything that Tobirama would be able to use while alive without prep. Like if we gave him prep time, he's able to use, you know, the Edo Tensei or something, then I do think that obviously like massively changes the battle. But without being able to use tandem paper bombs, he just doesn't have anything that I think Minato would have to particularly be worried about. Whereas Minato, as long as he can touch him, and he should be able to, because they're at least comparable speed-wise, with I think Minato having slightly greater speed assertions, Minato should be able to tag him, and if he can tag him, the Rasengan should put him down. You know, I just don't think that he's surviving that, or at least not taking massive damage from it. And then we also have Minato's sealing jutsu, which like people sort of underrate this. The 4-prong seal is just stated in the data books to be able to seal away large enemies and chakra. So it's like, so you can seal away enemies, that means like large enemies, summonings, you can seal away summonings. If you can seal away like a physical summoning, why can't you seal away a human being, you know? So it's like, there's a lot of different things that sort of point to the idea that he could just like restrain his movement, seal him away. He might be able to move him into the FTG subspace. There's a bunch of different things that he could do.
Well, on that note, yeah, I brought this up in my Minato video a while back, where, because people, again, statements get, you know, confused a lot when statements are thrown from the manga, but in the Minato one-shot manga, when Kurama talks about Minato being, quote, on par with the likes of Hashirama, it's clearly blatantly stated, it's said in the same text as when the sealing is happening in that manga. So Kurama is, in my opinion, talking about Minato's potential with sealing ninjutsu. So if Kurama is putting him pretty much on the like of Hashirama at 14, young Minato was in the one-shot manga, like 14 to 16 years old.
Yeah, he's like 14. Yeah, he's like 14.
So like, if he's putting him on that level at 14 years old already, that's crazy. I mean, so yeah, Minato's sealing ninjutsu is no joke.
Yeah, I would agree. I think his sealing jutsu gets underrated. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like, Tobirama's biggest advantage, I think, would be his water style. If he's able to get it off and it doesn't just like turn into a physical clash, then I think flooding the battlefield and like washing away any kunai that Minato has thrown out can be a huge problem for him. But the issue is, we know that Minato can use the Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu, because in his encounter with A and B, we see him reach into his back pocket, or like his back pouch, and you can count. He has 6 kunai in his back pouch, but when he throws them out, 27 appear.
Yeah.
So it's like he's obviously multiplying these. So even if he throws a bunch of kunai out and like marks all these different positions and Tobirama washes them away, I mean, he could just spawn more. And then also, it's not just the kunai that he marks that he can teleport to. He can make shadow clones that he can teleport to. He can mark places on the ground. You know, there are all kinds of different things he can do with it. So I don't see that as being a major issue, but it could throw him off a little bit. So that would be Tobirama's advantage here. But yeah, in terms of overall jutsu variety, I would probably give it to Tobirama. But in terms of like usefulness in battle, I think it's pretty.
Well, also something we need to bring up too that I didn't think to bring up is chakra supply. And that might, at first it may not seem that big of an issue, because I don't think this is going to be a battle of attrition, so to speak. You know, I think one of these two is going to get a decisive blow in, you know, at some point. I don't think this is going to be a long drawn out battle per se, but when it comes to chakra though, obviously Tobirama kind of, now I'm not saying Minato is a slouch when it comes to chakra, because we've seen him last a long time, but Tobirama is a Senju. It's just kind of in his DNA. I mean, we've never really seen either Hashirama, Tobirama, or Tsunade for that matter really tire out all that often. I mean, Tsunade kind of, but only when she's either fighting for a really long time, like Orochimaru, or when she's healed hundreds of people, like in the village in the pain assault. So the Senju boast a large chakra supply. So Tobirama kind of has the edge over that. And again, that might not seem that big of an issue, but when it comes to the Shadow Clone Jutsu, it might play a factor. Like, for all we know, Tobirama might be able to start summoning more clones than Minato can. So that might be what like Tobirama has an edge over, you know. And if Tobirama is any kind of proficient with the Flying Raijin as Minato is, and maybe he can reciprocate the Flying Raijin on the clones too, and it just be like a whole freaking fight between teleporting clones like the entire time. So it really would be chaotic. I don't know what you think about that, Sage. I don't know how you think that fight would even.
Yeah, I mean, so whenever it comes to their chakra and stamina, I mean, I do think the Senju typically have like a stronger chakra. Like, we know that chakra can have different attributes. Like, Kushina is stated to have been born with a particularly powerful chakra, Madara particularly powerful chakra, Mito particularly powerful chakra. Sasuke's chakra is described as like getting denser and darker and colder the further he falls into darkness. So we know that there can be different qualities to chakra. So even if Tobirama doesn't have a greater quantity of chakra, I think his quality of chakra is probably more powerful than Minato's. But either way, I don't think it would become a war of attrition, because both of these guys like tend to try to outmaneuver, outthink their opponents and end the battle quickly. So I think that it would be over relatively quick. I mean, they're going to be building strategies against each other, but eventually one of them is going to land a killing blow in character. We also have to remember that like Minato does have summonings, which is interesting, but the fact that he has Sage Mode and summonings just means that he has an immense chakra supply. You have to have like monstrous chakra levels to even become a perfect Sage, and to even summon Gamabunta. Like, those are just stated. So it's not that he doesn't have great chakra levels, it's just like the Senju themselves already have fantastic chakra, and the chakra quality is probably more powerful. So I would give the chakra edge in terms of like potency and quality to Tobirama, but in terms of quantity, I think it can go either way, but I don't really think it would like make much of a difference in this battle, like you said.
So now that we've pretty much gotten all the like physical attribute sections out of the way, Sage, you ready to get the confirmation, you know, what we think the verdict's in?
I mean, yeah, go ahead. I'll let you go first.
I'm sorry, it's looking like Minato's the winner here. I know I'm gonna get the Tobirama fans and stands on my case about it. Again, you can ask Sage, y'all. I was telling him, I was like, I don't even want to do this, because I know this is the match of all matches, because I know that people love Tobirama, and I do too. I'm a Tobirama lover. Well, when not really comes when it's Hokage policies, so I'm not gonna say that. But Tobirama in general is pretty cool, pretty chill dude, I suppose. But no, like, I don't know. I just feel like Minato is just all around the more capable fighter. I don't want to say capable fighter, because that has like a negative connotation to that. I just think he's the better all-around fighter. He's, you know, he just has more going for him fight, I feel like, you know, and Tobirama does exceed him in a couple areas, but not in the areas that I feel like will be the deciding factor in this fight.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Like, the only advantage that Tobirama has in this fight really is his chakra, like, quality. You can argue jutsu arsenal, you can argue chakra quantity, you can argue skill, you can argue intellect, like battle IQ. I think they're very similar. But at the end of the day, Minato does just have the higher physical speed assertions. Like, again, scaling over Kurama, who scales over KCM2 Naruto, like full power Kurama, right? Relative to the Susanoo, which is above Madara's speed. Again, Madara blocks KCM2 Naruto's attacks, like takes him out fairly easily. So if that's a weaker version of Madara too. So if that's the case, then that just means that he is above KCM2 Naruto. So is Tobirama vaguely, but it's not really clear like what the difference is between those two. Whereas we can legitimately get Minato like a good deal above. So if he has the speed advantage, if he has the skill advantage with FTG, we both know they're going to be using FTG in battle. If their arsenals and intellects and chakra pretty much the same, the guy who has the speed advantage wins. You know, like that's just how it goes. So I think this one is really close. It would be an epic battle to see. I'd actually love to hear Kishimoto's perspective on it. I think he would give it to Minato because narratively Minato is higher. But that's something that I know we all want to see. But I think the next one, while still interesting, isn't as interesting. You want to go into the next matchup?
Yeah, like I said at the beginning of the video, Edo Minato versus Edo Tobirama. And I mean, look, Tobirama does get like, you know, a buff, so to speak. I guess they did say that because they're in Edo Tensei, they're not at their 100% power, but their buff, so to speak, is that their chakra is limitless and they can regenerate. But while Tobirama does get that buff, Minato gets that buff and then some with the Nine Tails chakra. And so it's already debatable really whether or not like Minato can, you know, beat Tobirama in Edo versus Edo base. But then you give him the Nine Tails chakra, which I can only assume amps his speed on top of already insane teleportation and massive amounts of chakra, Kurama avatar if needed, which I personally don't think so. As a matter of fact, I think he'd be able to, you know, get the fight over with just using his regular form. Like, I don't think he needs to use, I mean, I feel like it's easier for Tobirama to teleport away from a giant moving avatar as opposed to like trying to avoid something as slick, as small and slick as Minato, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I mean, it'd be a cool fight to see, I suppose, if you're just talking about base and base, but like Minato does have the KCM too, so it's not really much of an argument. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would say too, like, I'm actually of the opinion that KCM doesn't amp his speed because, like, I think that Kurama's chakra can only amp your speed, at least to a significant degree, if you're slower than Kurama, you know what I mean? Whereas, like, if Minato in base is already faster than Kurama, I don't think that it really, like, amps his physical speed. What it does do, though, is it increases his durability, his attack potency. He can go into a chakra avatar and fire Bijou bombs. All of those are massive issues for Tobirama. Where Tobirama could get a W is with the tandem paper bombs. I mean, that explosion is able to do serious damage. I don't think that Minato would be able to tank it even in the chakra avatar. I think that he would take damage. Like, it wouldn't put him down for good. But even if you assume that, like, he takes some, like, severe damage from it, they're in Edo, and one of them has high proficiency in sealing, and it's not Tobirama.
Yeah.
So it's like Minato, even in base, already has the speed advantage. Everything else is pretty similar. Tobirama now has a massive advantage in being able to use the tandem paper bombs on himself. So, like, he has just this huge AP, like, nuke advantage in his belt now. But first of all, Minato can just teleport away if he wants to. Second of all, even if he takes damage, Tobirama doesn't verifiably have a way to seal him away. So I would say that even in base as an Edo, Minato should win, but you give him Bijou bombs. I mean, come on.
It's not much.
Oh, quickly, one final point on that. He and Naruto in Bijou Sage mode. Keep in mind, Bijou Sage mode Naruto above KCM2 Naruto, above Tobirama for sure. Like, Minato in KCM is able to go into that chakra avatar and move relative to Naruto, combo with him, and then the data books say that he offers powerful support to him. I think if I am fighting somebody and a toddler comes in and, like, hits him in the ankle, it's probably not going to be considered powerful support. Like, somebody has to be at least somewhat relative to actually be able to offer powerful support, in my opinion. So getting him to that, like, Bijou Sage mode Naruto level just, like, gets him way above anything that Tobirama's ever shown. So that's just, like, one final point. I don't think that, like, Tobirama's crafty, so, like, he can figure out a way to survive for a while, but at the end of the day, like, he would just be prolonging the inevitable.
Now, one thing I will, you know, touch up on before we end the video is that I do want to give some Tobirama some clout, you know what I'm saying? Because first of all, he is the second Hokage, y'all. Don't trash the name of the second Hokage. He's nothing to sleep on, like 100%. And this is something that I want to bring up because I don't know how you feel about this particular argument that people want to use, but when people do bring this up, I think it's a little bit weird because it can be interpreted a couple different ways. So what the argument I'm talking about is because whenever people talk about Minato versus Tobirama, one of the very first things I see is like, whoa, could you see Minato losing to the Kinkaku Force? Like, Tobirama got killed by the Kinkaku Force. The Kinkaku Force, they thought. I'm like, okay, that's a little bit unfair unfair in my opinion, because a couple things are stacked into that situation. One being that on their way back from whatever mission they were on, it's in the Great Ninja War, but we don't really know what mission, so to speak, that they were on. But it's obviously shown that they were coming back from mission and that they were all like either tired, massively fatigued, battle damaged, whatever you want to call it. So they weren't in tippity top shape. Like they weren't at 100%.
Yeah.
Also, they were 20 plus ninja. And I mean, I don't know. It's been thrown around if they were S rank or not. I don't entirely know. It's been debated on whether or not like they were all S rank or not. But we can at least assume that they were like at least Anbu level aside from Gold and Silver brothers. But and then like the third point is this was after they already had chakra from the Nine Tails too. So like all these factors into account, unless I'm missing something else, like it's pretty weird to give Tobirama a whole bunch of crap because he quote lost to the Kinkaku Force. And besides, we don't even know how that fight played out. Like for all we know, something else could have happened that like, I mean, I don't know how you feel about that, Sage.
Yeah, so something people need to consider is that the only thing we really know about the Kinkaku Force is that it's a force put together by the Hidden Cloud to track down, rogue shinobi. So it's basically like, in part 1, whenever Kakashi sees the mask from Haku, he's like, oh, that's a Anbu like hunter nin. That's what the Kinkaku Force is stated to be. So it's very possible that Kinkaku and Ginkaku are actually not a part of that force, and maybe they're actually like the group was assembled to hunt them down. If that's the case, then it would just be comprised of like a bunch of, Anbu plus level members, which like might sound kind of dumb, but like consider who's in the village at the time, right? So the second Raikage is in power. The third Raikage is a young man. So the third Raikage may have been a part of this unit. You also have like all of these other, like we don't know who else is in the village at the time, but like if Tobirama is saying like just based on their chakra levels that they're 20 highly skilled shinobi, I don't think he's talking about Chunin. I don't think he's talking about like just regular Jonin. Like I think he's probably talking about some pretty powerful people. So I'm actually of the opinion that Kin and Gin are not a part of it. Like Kinkaku just means golden horn. So like it could have just been either kind of a coincidence or it could have been they were put together to hunt down those two. And if they are put together to hunt down those two, they wouldn't have put slouches in there. So yeah. Not only does Tobirama, defeat this group, because it says Tsunade implies that he succumbed to his wounds after fighting them off. Not that he like got killed in combat, like mowed down, right? So not only did he fight 20 highly skilled shinobi, arguably with no prep, like no edos or anything, just like by himself, he also seems to have fended them off and then succumbed to wounds later on. So even if it's Kinningen, you could just say like he was already massively fatigued and like got hit by like a little mini tailed beast bomb or something. If it's not Kinningen, you could say the third Raikage was a part of that squad, along with a bunch of other high-ranking shinobi. So there's a bunch that goes into it. It's really unfair to say like he's buns because he got taken out by this force when you have no idea who's in the force. I
mean, I'm not saying this is one way or the other. That's fact. But if A were S class, ninja, that's nothing to sleep on. Because like think of every member of the Akatsuki. That's S class. So like if you are of the opinion that they were S class, then he pretty much fought 20 Akatsuki members. I mean, that's about as blatant as you can get. So, but that is if you take it as S class or not. I mean, it's up to you. But yeah, so I mean, at the end of the day, Tobirama is no slouch. We hope that we aren't like giving that impression, but we just think that Minato is the more, I hate saying capable fighter. I think I don't want to say better fighter because I mean, it's not like Tobirama sucks at fighting at all, but I just think he has the superiority over Tobirama.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's not that Tobirama is not strong. It's just that, Minato is, if you look at towards the end of part 1, there is a chapter synopsis statement that just says like, he's an unparalleled talent, unrivaled power. Everyone chases after him. Like he's just narratively considered to be like top of the verse for a long time in terms of like people that we know about. So for that to be true, I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's above Tobirama based on that alone, but the narrative assertions should get him that high. And then when you consider like the Kurama scaling, the 8th Gate guy scaling, all of that, it's just like he does live up to his reputation of being the fastest. A lot of people will point to the interaction with Jubito. He's very clearly mentally nerfed there. Like the Naruto website corroborates, the data books corroborate this. They say he's in a stupor up until he bumps fists with Naruto. This probably began whenever he like exits the FTG subspace and cuts Obito without realizing who it is, and then like realizes who it is and thinks back to his fight with him. That's probably when that mental nerf began. So I think it's fair to say that any sort of downplay on that side is just unfair, and we have to put to bed some of these really unfair scaling chains that we've seen, like Tobirama relative to Jubito because he moved his hand 3 inches when Jubito ran after. It's just not fair. But that doesn't mean Tobirama's not strong. All right, somebody can be strong and still lose to somebody else that's also super strong.
Yeah. So that's gonna do it for the video. I hope y'all did enjoy. Thank you so much, Sage, for being on channel once again.
No problem, brother. Anytime.
So yeah, let us know in the comments what you guys think. Try to not make a war in the comments, y'all. Let's just be a little more, you know. I love all these, you know, debates in the comments, but like, let's just be, you know, a little bit civil if we can.
Yeah, and if you have any problems with the Minato scaling, come to me.
But in any case, y'all, thank you for watching all the way to the end. If you have, please subscribe, please like the channel if you haven't already, and